I'm in neighborhood services, so I'll be working with you guys with the bids. So I'm slowly learning it. I'm not totally new to the city. I actually worked with the city about 8 years ago, in financial operations. So I'm back.
And that was permitting too?
Yep, business licensing and
Yeah.
permits and.
I don't know if any other business owners, recognize him from.
I bet John does.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us, the team. And then we'll go around the room. Please state your name and business association. And then just for, my purposes of keeping track of who's representing a, real estate owner or like, yeah, so if the business that you're representing owns its property, please let me know, or you could say that you're leasing. So, I'm Julia Johnson with the Pablo Group, and, we own the Jant building.
I don't sit on this board. I'm Erin Klaus, the executive director of Becky, and I own Tangle with You, but in South Park.
My name is John Wilkinson. I'm with Investment Realty, and we own the property in our forest that we represent.
I'm Tim O'Brien from Martin Norman. We rent from Trust Point across the street.
Jason Mons from Trust Point, we own the building.
Crystal Halverson from Another Market Co-op, we own the building.
Joe Miller with Investment Realty and represent the property we own.
I'm Hannah Carroll, I'm a guest. I'm the CEO of Western Dairyland, and we own the building at 42.
My name is Brett Dubois. I'm a guest also. We are not in the bid. I'm representing the Polk House Commission.
And I'm Jennifer McHugh with Royal Credit Union, and we own the building.
Billy Hufford with City of Eau Claire, and we own the building.
No, the check.
Taxpayers, yes. We.
Keeping as we track our roster, we, have a state statute obligation to have more than half, owner representatives. So just want to make sure that, we have accurate record of that. Our first, item of business is previous meeting minutes. The only thing I wanted to add is under members absent, Jen McHugh, John Wilkinson, Tim O'Brien, and Greta. Any other, for our previous meeting minute? Sorry. Any other requests for changes? Otherwise, a motion to approve our previous meeting minute. So. Yeah. Do you want them to say names or are we good?
I'm good.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor of that motion, approve by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Then that motion passes and we move on to current financials. Financials include a condensed view of budget to actuals for 2024 and 2025. 2025 was listed first. For future meetings, we've requested this view and a detailed view, but I hope you agree that, this view is helpful. So thank you, city staff, for that. The reserves amount at the beginning of this year is $170,000, $170,000. And at the end of 2023, it was $150,000. Any questions about the financials? Or comments on the new format or motion to approve financials that are in our package?
I would add the 2024, they're still finalizing everything, so if this number would change, that is why we can give you details on it when it's all finalized, if it does change.
Garbage service prepaid, and we're over half.
Yeah, they bill for the quarter and then they perform that service. Motion to approve our financials?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? And all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes and we move on to the Day Resource Center update with Western Dairyland and Hope School Mission. And we have just a ridiculously full agenda. I really appreciate you guys being here, but if you could keep your presentation to 2 to 3 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions, and we could always, circulate contact information for further discussion.
So, we'll be quick. So as you know, we've been working for a couple of years. So I'm Anna from Western Dairyland. We've got Brett from Hope Gospel Mission. I'm securing a location for a permanent data resource center in Eau Claire. We did feasibility study last summer that many of you participated in. We, did determine if there is still a doctor support for the project. Turns out, yes, there is, with a few caveats that we listened to. The first one was that the community did not want a data resource center in the Barstow business corridor. The second was that the community did not want us to build a new building. They wanted us to use an existing building, move forward. And the third was just to finalize things with Hope Gospel Mission. So I'm pleased to announce that we have done all three, and we are announcing the location this morning. We are bringing it to the bid first, as Western Dairyland is currently in the North Barstow bid. Our building will also be. So our building that we are purchasing is 610 Gibson Street. So this is past the Trust Point building, right near the S Bridge. Currently, the renters are the state of Wisconsin, Department of Revenue, Department of Health Services, and Department of Children and Families. They have been notified. We are closing on or before June 13th with renovations to begin then. Our pre-campaign, we have started. The campaign will go public probably in November. Pre-campaign, we are sitting very well. Brett is handing out for you as the case statement, the draft and FAQ, and a letter. We will be working with the city ambassadors. We want to be a good neighbor. So we'd like to participate in the North Barstow bid. I have applied to be an applicant today. That is up to the bid, but we've got we are working with heirs on the architect very precisely, and if anyone wants to discuss this quickly, I can pass this out, but if you look at the blue side, will be Western Dairyland Housing and Family Services offices. These services are now already being provided at our Western Dairyland office at 418 Wisconsin Street. That is the side of the river. The green side will be the data resource center side that Hope Gospel will be running and renting from Western Dairyland. The office spaces, right, I guess it doesn't. I don't know how to point on here, but in the green part, there's office spaces that will be free, flexible space for partners to come in. We have been in talks with Mayo is looking to have new resident certification. We have arrangements with probation and parole, the veterans, staffing centers, the police, lots of, different services and providers. We are very excited about it. The renovations in the building, if you are familiar with the building, it is pretty much an open box, lots of cubicles in there. But the big renovations will be, if you look at the green part in the center, adding 6 unisex bathrooms, 3 with toilets, and then 3 with showers, and then adding laundry facilities. So we will be offering laundry facilities, shower facilities, bathroom facilities, lots of other services.
Yeah, I just quickly share, it's our vision, Hope Gospel Mission, to really help people towards wellness. And we don't want to create a space where people can just lay around and continue in their situation forever. We're going to provide some caseworkers as well to see where people are at and see how we can best help them get into a better situation, find the resources that they need, and really, I think, help people get back into society and be well again. Currently, the Day Resource Center is kind of a place to just get out of the weather. We want to provide more. So there are a lot of people hurting out there. We, are part of an association of many missions across the country. They do this type of thing as well as what we do on the left side of Eau Claire. So we have gone around, looked at many best practices, toured the Midwest over
5 days.
for 5 days,
5
over
days.
16, 17-day resource centers. So we hope to bring something that is effective. We want to work with the city, we want to work with the businesses, we want to make downtown vibrant. We love coming downtown. And we think we can do a good job in doing that. So I know Jen was told that's all that is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. What, you say it'll be open during the daytime, not an overnight shelter. What will your hours be?
We're anticipating 9 AM to 6 PM every day. But that, you know, we'll have to see.
Monday through
Sunday. Yes.
What is going to happen with your old building on Wisconsin Street?
So we are currently very overcrowded there. I share an office with CEO with 2 other people. So we are going to keep it for now and then eventually, you know, we may sell it, we don't know. But, this was partially needed because we are literally out of space at, you know, at this, we are very full on.
Is another question, is the city of Eau Claire, committed to financing this in any way?
So the Eau Claire City Council did provide the $500,000, and this was directed by City Council before Western Dairyland was involved, provided $500,000 to any organization that would, create a permanent day resource center. It was just that Western Dairyland happened to do it.
And the current tenant, will they be relocating downtown or?
No. So the state of Wisconsin, I spoke with them this week, and again, it's 3 departments. They are currently holdover tenants. They do not have a lease, so they, you know, they are given 90 days notice. They are currently looking, throughout the city of Eau Claire. They do not have to be downtown. And I will say that being in the building very recently, they don't need that space. Many of them have worked remotely since COVID began, correct, Brett? And so they are looking for smaller, they've been looking for smaller for a while, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay to move on? Okay, thank you both
Thank
so
you.
much.
And again, if anybody does have any questions or wants to meet individually, talk about anything else, our contact number, is information in the letter.
The next agenda item is bid board director election. We are filling 1 spot because Greta Haddish resigned from the board after selling the refillery. This term will actually end at the end of this year because we have 3-year terms. This seat was held by Lindsay at volume 1 and then Greta took it over. So this is going to be the 3rd person in this 3-year term for
Is
this
she
seat.
staying for the election?
Our current board composition meets the state statute for proper owner representation and all, applicants meet our bylaw requirements. Okay, actually, yeah, we have to have a discussion on that. Sorry, my notes, I didn't know what to do there. The executive committee did not have a recommendation, so we're gonna vote via paper ballot. The result from our vote will be this board's recommendation to the appointment committee. I think there's a better term for that. It's the appointment and something nominations committee. Appointment and nominations committee. Okay, thank you. And their selection will be, the result from our vote will be this board's recommendation to that committee, and their selection will be confirmed by city council. Now, our next item is going to be the bid operating plan, but assuming that we are operating underneath our current operating plan and bylaws, we actually got 3 applicants, but Anna, you don't meet the requirements of our bylaws to be a member, because I should have printed it out or put it in here, but under bylaws membership, I have it up right here. Members are defined as businesses within the district that contribute to the assessment. And I looked up the taxes for your building and it was 0. So, any discussion on that? Because I'm just going from what I think is,
Wasn't that Confluence a member though? I thought they were.
so the South Barstow allows for nonprofits on their board. And that's in their bylaws. And we're actually updating our bylaws. And there's even been, like, I don't know what happened at council last night, but there's been discussion within that committee saying that they're not, I mean, this is an example, what I read it as, they're not likely to approve operating plans that don't allow for nonprofits or someone outside of the district to serve on this bid board. But we haven't updated our operating plan yet. So I feel like we've got this 9-month term, you know, like in the year that we plan on changing our operating plan to, I mean, kind of whether we like it, probably include that. And that's actually a discussion item in our next agenda item. But
Well, and listen, I don't need to be a member. I want to be a partner. So, you know, as soon to own 2 businesses within the bid, I want to be a partner for the business community. So I'm happy to attend and present at any time.
thank you. And I'm just gonna, for the full explanation, just read what I brought up from our bylaws. It's Article 3, members shall be defined as members of the district. Oh, shoot, sorry. Owners of real estate or their designated representatives and tenants in the real estate included in the district upon whose assessments are levied by the city of Eau Claire for the purpose of funding the district operating and program tasks shall be identified as members. And then under, you know, like who's eligible, it says that, you know, 11 members and left it up. I'm sorry. I don't think I would have even had this on my radar had I not been spending a lot of hours updating our operating plan, including our agenda number 6 for today. So unless I'm going to be told that I am not thinking of this correctly, then I will pass out ballots.
I already did, I didn't realize.
Well, yours are so much prettier than mine, but mine only have 2 names on them. Will you pass that down? I don't know what it is.
Cheated.
Any other questions about the process and what it indicates?
I have, is it not an option to delay that?
That's a great question. It is. I anticipate our operating plan will be in place sometime between like July and September, and this board position ends in December. So if we, thank you. If we delay it, it hurts our ability to have quorum because a quorum is like more than 50% majority.
Yeah.
And we do struggle with quorum.
And this is our only open seat right now, and we don't anticipate any other seats opening up until then.
January.
Yeah.
So we will be electing for the seats that expire their 3-year term in December so that they can serve, like, or, you know, be a voting member at our February meeting.
Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions about the process? All right, then cast your vote. Right, then we will move on to number 6, our bid operating plan. There will likely be no action on this item, but I do need direction to further refine a new operating plan that would then be voted on at our June meeting. And then sent to council for their approval or denial. If the operating plan is sent back to us, so like it's denied, after our June meeting, we could make changes prior to our August meeting, then vote on it again and submit it along with our budget. Does that make sense why we can look at this now? The operating plan in our packet is a rewrite of a document that was provided by Blake and Janessa from the city attorney's office. I'd like to ask for feedback on certain items before opening it up to the group for changes or comments or requests. Knowing that I'm going to ask for discussion on certain points, and then we're gonna discuss all the other things. Are there questions about how we got here or what's going on?
So this is the bid board's proposed operating agreement, not the city book. Or just
Um,
speech.
I
I noticed the South Barstow bid has some stuff that is really not acceptable. This.
This-
To John or to the city?
To the city.
Okay,
Well, there's controversy.
yeah.
This is a draft that I would like this board to make sure that it's what we want, and then we are going to be submitting it to city council. So when you say the city's draft, I don't know what you mean. Like, I use a draft from Blake and Janessa, and I rewrote it in terminology that I could understand and with prior, like I incorporated a lot of the things from our bylaws and our current operating plan. And then with the discussion that we've had as a board about this topic in previous meetings in the last 12 months. So I tried to combine all, I would say, 4 kind of, sources. And I'm trying to, have this be the direction of this board, so I need to make sure today that like we refine it so that it is what this board wants. So I'm going to bring up like 5 items. First one is on the top of page 20 of your board packet, and it's the city procurement policy. We can vote to accept what, except that we are required to follow city procurement policy or investigate this further. So I'm asking for your direction. Do we just say like, yes, we are going to follow city procurement policy, or, you know, do we look into the state statute item that says that bids with a budget less than $300,000 are not required to have audited financials, therefore we might not be called to the same, you know, standards that the city is, or, you know, have the argument that we're not a committee of the city, and therefore we don't follow, you know, we aren't legally obligated to follow, you know, all city policies, the city handbook, for example. So we, as a board, have gone through an RFP process, and it's the first time. I think we're gonna be better at it next year as far as, you know, including probably the capital improvement expenses in our contract with a service provider. Obviously, this year it's Decky. And if we say like, yep, how it's written, we agree that we're going to follow city procurement policy, basically, that's the plan, is we go through the RFP process. We act more nimbly because we've hired Decky to spend our money, and, you know, that seems to be a promising path. We aren't there yet. I can't say it's working yet because we don't have a contract with Decky yet, and I haven't actually gotten Decky paid or any of our subcontractors reimbursed. You know, like it's not in place yet. So direction of board, and we could even just say like, let's do a raise of hands. Who wants to have it how I wrote it. We follow city procurement policy. And then who wants to say, I'm ready to include that in our operating plan? Let's investigate this further. Yes,
A
ma'am.
couple of things, just trying to find what it is in the statute. But I believe that one of the questions that arose was, does the chapter 66 policy, the law, allow us to, procure and budget differently? And trying to find what it was. And so I think that is something we need to know. You know, are we, if we choose A, is it consistent with the law? If we choose B, is that consistent?
Well, I assumed that if we chose A, we were going above and beyond what the law required.
Mhm. And maybe we should, and we have a meeting on Tuesday.
I know.
Executive board met on Tuesday and talked a little bit about this, and one of the conversations was before we get into finalizing this, everybody should talk about it, which led to a discussion about whether we could share this document back and forth and all just put our comments on it. The city, and I think they're correct, said you can't do that because then you're having an effective meeting outside. Everybody is changing the document together. But if we bring our changes to the document to a meeting to talk about those changes, I don't think that's an issue. That's what we're supposed to do about the meeting. So that was part of it. And the reason I'm bringing some of this up, Julie, is I'm assuming we haven't gotten any response from the city attorney yet. And just based on what John just said, I'm assuming South Barstow hasn't gotten a direct response from the city attorney yet either.
Yeah, and that's the good information for the rest of the board is that I, provided this copy last Monday, so like just a week and a half ago. And Janessa was the one in the room representing this draft. It had been written by Blake. I sent it to Steve Nick because he was the only attorney whose email that I could find, that I knew wasn't on vacation. And he basically said, like, Janessa's been working with you on this. It's been substantially rewritten, like, we'll get back to you. Pretty much.
But she was on spring break and then she was in London and then there was a fire, so she was sort of delayed in her return, but I know she's back, yes.
And the reason I bring some of this up is I wasn't present at the council meeting when some of these things were talked about, or some follow-up, but would it be better to just have the assistant city attorney come to one of our meetings, whether even if it has to be in closed session, to talk about these things as opposed to memos back and forth about what we can and can't do? And sometimes I think it's, we have to follow the procedure. But if we could just say, okay, why is this and why isn't, and if somebody explains it, well, the law says you can do this and you can't. And like what we did between Tuesday and today with the email they sent out, made sense after I read it, but it would be nice to just talk through, here's what we think. And so I'm not trying to derail what you're talking about right now, but I'm wondering if we're putting the cart before the horse by saying, this is our document when they haven't reacted to it yet.
Yeah. And I assume that they will react to it and I will continue. If we called open meetings or closed session, then we could all work on it together. I've been trying to move it along by working on it individually.
And I think everybody in the room probably was gonna applaud that part.
Yeah.
Well, and I think there's nothing wrong with doing a straw poll exercise. We're not, we can't finalize this document until it's reviewed by the city anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that said, spending our money, whatever gives us the most flexibility is what I would think.
Yeah. So continue So I'm hearing you lean towards, continue to investigate this further. Should we just do a show of hands, like anyone, like saying like this is not worth, investigation, like just say we follow city procedures, purchasing procedures, even though they can be arduous. Um, anyone or show of hands of who thinks we should investigate our options further? Okay. And then the next item is also on page 20 and it's board composition. So I wrote it up as I was directed by this board. So I basically say that everybody has to be from within, the board boundaries reside within the district, whether they lease their own. I did not include that they have to contribute to the assessment. That's another one down here. But there was a committee meeting that basically directed bids to allow for people from outside of the district boundaries to be able to participate in, the bid board. I do not, Aaron Brewster or anyone from staff, was there a specification on like how many board members, was required or requested? Okay, so then I have it on our sheet that we could vote on it as is, how I wrote it, or choose a number between 6 to 10 bid board members must own or occupy commercial property within the bid. So,
The resolution passed by council was what's in the state law. They'll highly consider whoever you guys recommend, and unless there's something glaring that they wouldn't want to recommend them, they would recommend them on to council. But state law is majority.
the state is majority owned property. So that would, if we did have the rest of the people from outside of the district, that would not allow for anyone who leased this property.
Well, it could.
No.
If the majority have to own.
If the majority have to own the other side.
The others don't have to be.
Anybody.
It's just the restriction is majority has to be, but then after that, it depends on who's chosen.
Statute says, the chief executive officer, excuse me, shall appoint members to a business improvement district board to implement the operating agreement. Board members shall be confirmed by the local legislative bodies for staggered terms. The board shall have at least 5 members. A majority of the board members shall own or occupy real property in the business improvement district.
Okay.
So I read that to say that 6, if you have an 11-person board, 6 or more either have to own or occupy.
Own or lease.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm occupants across.
So that is not what our bylaws have or operating plan has said in the past. So are we
Then
saying?
everybody on
Uh-huh.
what, I'm sorry, why would we want a bunch of people who aren't
Even,
in the bid on this board deciding how
yeah, so.
we spend the money
Oh,
that.
can I, and 2 years ago, we were told that only people that own the LLC meet that requirement. So there was actually a husband and wife that owned a business, and the husband, was the property owner. And like, she didn't qualify as meeting that requirement anymore. And that was with the help of city legal. So like, I'm sorry, I just have to like chuckle a little that like, my mind is getting blown right now that we could go from being told that, a wife who owns a business no longer meets that requirement to now only 6 board members can either, own or lease the business, and that the rest of our board. So I don't.
it's not mandatory that it go the other way, all 11 can be owners and occupiers.
Yeah.
But the concern you raise is, I think, legitimate, but that's what the law says right now. So,
I have a question. So the law says that at least majority has to be, but can't our operating agreement say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them have to be?
Well, it doesn't.
Well,
And the bylaws.
it does. That's why we just told Anna that she's not eligible to serve on our board. Now, the question is, can we get a copy of what passed last night to see how what is in writing? You know, maybe we should just skip this one because without knowing what council passed last night, I don't,
But
oh,
also,
sorry.
I mean, Brewster can speak to it. He's the only one that voted against it. But a resolution, can you explain what a resolution is and how it impacts?
Oh, it's a resolution.
It's not like,
A resolution can direct policy, but it's not an ordinance.
Okay.
So like right now, our policy, but basically, I brought it up in council that, a lot of the operating plans are not in alignment with what we passed. And Josh Miller brought correctly to my point that there is a Venn diagram overlap piece right now on how the operating plans are updated in whatever capacity they are updated. They'll continue appointing based on the current operating plan.
so.
If that makes sense.
but it still doesn't require them to have someone who's outside of the district. It just allows.
As of right now, they will only appoint based on your operating
Right.
plan, if and when the operating plan is updated, fixed, modified, whatever, to allow for something else, then maybe it would be a good idea to have Anna on there and loosen that up. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for you guys. I can absolutely imagine situations in which somebody would have a skill set that you might want on your board for a specific challenge, and maybe they're not in the downtown, but maybe they're in, North Riverfront or something like that, something adjacent.
Like Eric Associates, for instance, works down
Yeah.
there, that doesn't, yeah.
And so my understanding is that they'll be very strongly considering your recommendations. And it seems unlikely, at least given the current, I can't speak for council 10 years down the road, right? But I think with who we have in there now, the likelihood that this will lead to a major conflict point is very small.
Crystal?
So the change from assessed to owned or occupied building would allow for Anna, no matter how we define this other piece.
True,
Okay,
because she's still within
Yeah.
the district.
so my thinking is, I like that language, owned or occupied building. Forget about the whether or not it's assessed. That will be more accessible for everybody. And I think based on, especially what Aaron just said, that, mimicking the law and not much more in our document allows the document to go forward. And I think as the board is clear that we would be, bringing to the attention of the city council people who own or occupy. And I agree with the statement that, there is nowhere, it doesn't seem in law that says there has to be even one person who is from outside.
Correct.
Right, so that's the question I think legal should answer for us is, does this statute operate as a minimum requirement or a limitation?
Yes.
Because if it's a limitation, that you have to allow up to 5 in being outside, stated another way, Julia, can our operating agreement have more strict requirements than the state statute?
That's what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the reason that the thing about the nonprofits were because if you had a whole bid board that was all nonprofit and, none of them are paying taxes, what's to keep them from raising the assessment to whatever they want to be because they're not paying anything?
Yeah.
So that was the reasoning that everybody that was in the bid board have skin in the game
Sure.
and they're spending their money. This is not city taxes, it's people that are assessing themselves.
So we potentially could name a minimum
Right.
assessed. A minimum number of people are assessed.
Nonprofit.
South Barstow has the restriction of 2 nonprofits being available, doesn't mean they have to have 2.
Yeah.
They can only have up to 2. And the reasoning behind that, again, same with what John said, but that recognizing for, in this bid, you know, Pablo being nonprofit, we have someone from Valley Brook on the board, so, that they still contribute in some way through in-kind support to the bid, and that was one of the requirements that was set in the bylaws, that it's understood that there is still a way that they serve the bid without, contributing to it.
And also just to clarify, just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean you're not assessed, correct? Like there are some
Mayo,
nonprofits.
right, great example.
Yeah, okay. So we have to distinguish about whether we're talking about nonprofit status or assessed status.
Yeah.
And some for-profit businesses are also nonprofit.
Do nonprofit, yeah.
I got one of those.
Okay, so I feel like we need that clarification from legal and a copy of the resolution.
I'll see if I can find it and I'll email it to you.
But I'm
I-
also hearing from the
Okay.
board, and maybe we should just do a show of hands that, we might aim to be more limiting than the state statute. Raise your hand if you agree that we want to aim to be more limiting than the state statute.
Let's discuss it. We'll do a final document.
I mean, I kind of feel like just an old dog and like, it's too much change too fast. I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna move on to page 21, agenda creation.
We don't have, I don't have page 20.
Oh, it's of your packet. I'm sorry. So
Mine's a page.
I know, because I do everything on a computer. So it's under board composition. Yeah, and you're 2 pages of it. I know, it's not even numbers there for you, John, I'm so sorry.
They are, it's just that.
Okay. So, in one area, I just realized this last night that, I kept something from the draft and then I added something. And now in the document that I gave you, there is a discrepancy on how agendas are created. Under the executive committee portion, it says, the executive committee will meet prior to full board meetings to set the meeting agenda and discussion items. Which, disclosure, I was on spring break last week and I'm going to Hawaii next week. I know, it feels bad for me, but, in this situation, because we need agendas a week in advance, like 2 weeks ago, I sent the agenda for the executive committee and, the full board. And I created them both on my own. And, ideally, we do create an agenda together as a executive committee, but like, I would have been in breach of this rule. So like this one doesn't explain how our executive committee agendas are created. And in this instance, I don't know how I could have followed it. I guess I would have had to schedule our full board later, but according to Dutiful, this one had a better chance of a quorum. So, or later, like 2 paragraphs later, I say, agendas will be created by the board chairperson in collaboration with city staff. Board chairperson will include agenda items requested by board members or city staff. City staff will post agendas and will not remove agenda items without legal cause and notice to board chairperson. So this one puts the onus on one individual, but it also kind of says that the chairperson can't, I don't know how to describe it, limit, yes. Like, they can't guard items from being added to the agenda.
What about them just changing the second sentence to say instead of will include, shall include? Or something.
I know, I'm trying to imagine a situation too in which we get 50 items on an agenda and I have no way of controlling
Well.
the length of our meeting. I didn't think to try to control it. Okay.
Well,
May.
you want, well, I don't know, I mean, you want to have the discretion of the board, that's part of the chairman's job, right? Is to decide the
Agreed.
agenda. I mean, that's what I was.
Agreed.
And I know in council, it's a much more formal process and any two members can, you know, bring an item to the agenda. I don't feel like we're there.
No,
We're lucky we make it to the meeting, right? I mean, you know, let's not bog this down too much.
Okay,
I like the second one, the B, that you wrote, agenda will be created by the board chairperson in collaboration with city staff and executive committee. Might allow you to go on vacation or delegate if necessary, or
Yeah.
receive feedback if you have 50 items to comment now.
mhm.
And then I like board chair may include agenda items that are requested for.
Okay, so I'm adding executive committee to in collaboration with city staff and executive committee.
Yeah, it's still more concise than the paragraph above that includes that.
I don't think we need a vote on this one. Good. Okay. Page 22, legal advice. I'm sorry, John, it's like the last one under board of operations.
Page 6.
In this one, I actually don't have it in front of me, so if someone wants to read what it says, and the question is keep or drop.
I can read it. The bid is represented by the city's attorney services, but the bid can hire other legal professionals to provide their advice or documentation of legal opinion.
This is a toned down version of we have right to hire our own representation. And, you know, Dave Solberg asked me at the end of our 3-hour meeting about this operating plan, like, what is there left that you need representation for, Julia? Like, why, like, haven't we figured it all out? Like, why do you still need a lawyer? And I'm just thinking back over the last 12 months, and I didn't know any of our conflicts were coming. So my question to you is, or my answer for him, and I've been thinking about this a lot, is like about the procurement process. Like, do we meet the same threshold that city does? And, you know, like, do I feel like I get options from the city's attorney's office that help me do what I want to accomplish or what the will of this board is? Like, do they help navigate like how to figure out things for like what we want? Do I feel represented? Or too often I feel policed by the city attorney's office, and it's like their job to make sure we don't do illegal things. Hallelujah, like, thank you. But they sometimes don't have the time, or yeah, I'll just say the time to do the work of trying to navigate how we can accomplish what we want. And sometimes I feel like if we approached a neutral third party with, hey, can you look for any, you know, within the law? I'm not trying to, like, you know, subvert the law, but can you represent my interests and take your time and, you know, my payment to help accomplish this thing that is in our interest? An example might be like when we were told that we don't have the right to advocate. Like, there was an argument about, you know, tax dollars that made it seem like, oh, well, yeah, we can't lobby. But we have been writing letters of support or non-support, you know, for like decades. And it turned out like, yes, you can advocate, but you individuals can't advocate on behalf of the board. And it took like a lot of non-lawyers reading a lot of legal stuff to like argue that we absolutely can advocate. And sometimes I just feel like it would be nice to have the option to hire that legal opinion. And if I am like running down this very controversial road without the board's support, like I will give it up. Like I do not need to.
Really, I'm with you 100% on having this in here. This last 12 months, it's obvious to me the city has their own agenda on things. And I think we absolutely need to have this option. Right.
Well, I think the way that you said it was beautiful, how you just said it right now. And it's really not about fight with the city. It's just about knowing all of our options and having somebody that can represent us and just inform us of all of our options. And instead of just being told the option or the B way, I think a lot of things are small.
Every attorney has their own opinion.
Right.
And I think Steve Nick's attorney opinion is totally on the city side.
Correct.
And I can't think of why the city would be opposed to it, because all we're doing is asking for a second opinion.
Now, we're not looking to enter into a lawsuit.
Correct.
I'm in favor of keeping it.
One of the questions that I have, I was trying to find Janessa's memo that she had sent. Also, if there's any statute or ordinance that specifically states every committee is mandated to use the city attorney's office. Because I remember that being said, and I was like, well, I don't think I've used the police and fire commission so far. They have to hire their own attorneys when there's a dispute between the police chief and council, or between the police chief and an individual officer. Because the city attorney has a dual role there. They have to advise the police chief, but they also have to advise the council. And that can lead to conflicts that they can't, give advice to two separate people that might be different.
Yeah.
And so now maybe the friendly amendment, if you will, is that we use our own funds. We're not asking them to, to pay that. But I would ask specifically if they're saying you can't do this, please cite us chapter and verse that says that. Where in the law does it say that? And it may, if it does, well, we'll deal with it when the time comes. But I don't know that there is a city ordinance or a state statute that says committees of a city cannot employ their own professionals. Do with engineers all the time, right?
Aaron, yes, sir?
I just wanted to say, you brought up engineers, that's always in a subcontracted, because we do have our own engineering departments in with legal, whatever, and I wonder if there's a way that it could be worded where it's, you want to be able to subcontract legal, additional legal services at our own expense through the city attorney's office, kind of thing. And then you presumably go through the same sort of procurement situation, depending on how much you wanted to spend. But then, assuming this is kosher, and I have no idea because I'm not a lawyer, but you could subcontract through that, if you have a specialization that you need legal services for. And then, the city attorney's office looks it over and, confirms. I mean, I think it would be, I don't know, just a thought.
Thank you.
Just to say, that seems doable. That definitely seems like a good compromise.
Oh, I have a call.
I know the people.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
in the city, hires outside counsel, municipalities hire outside counsel all the time. Whether it's for lawsuits that are beyond their scope,
Yeah.
or whether it's finance matters where they have to get bigger firms, frankly, to do that work. That happens every day.
Awesome. Okay, these last points, we have no stipulation that the property must contribute to bid funds. I think we already discussed that one, that's a positive. And then one other carryover, or I didn't include from our bylaws that a 2/3 vote is required to request removal of a bid board member. So currently we would just like default to simple majority would be required to vote to request, removal of the bid board member. And that's usually included, but it wasn't included in the draft from Janessa. We've never used it. I'm fine with leaving it off. Or there is a mention of requesting removal for a bid board member who has not attended a majority of the meetings in the 12 consecutive months. Don't care that there's not a removal special vote level. Okay. I will open it up to discussion on points within the operating plan.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm looking at the bottom of page 7 on the plan approval process. And it says that we're going to annually consider, make changes and submit the operating plan to city council for approval.
Yeah.
So is that a city ordinance or
State statute.
the state statute? Okay. If it's, state statute, then we have to do it, but I'm looking at how long this has taken us, and it's like, we're gonna be spending every meeting
So
updating and getting approval and going back and forth with legal.
last year was the first time that we considered changes. And we decided not to make them, even though it was 20 years old.
Yeah.
It has been written without dates in the document so that only the appendixes or if that was, I'm sorry. Yeah, the attachments could be updated, like for example, with our budget or if our boundaries change.
Okay.
I don't anticipate large changes to this operating plan. Unless we really change our mind on something.
We can, but we just, as a board, will decide or not decide to make changes every year, because I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, and you were thinking about
It's statute, so now annually consider or may make changes. And then submit to the local legislative body for approval, so.
Is that not how I have it written?
I know that's how I have.
Okay.
We have it, we say shall annually consider, make changes and submit.
Okay,
Maybe
so I
it's-
wanna add
So
and may.
shall annually, look at, I think 26 of this PDFs. Some either 3D is the language.
So we have an agenda once a year, but we may or may not be doing it. Just so we're codifying that we're still good.
And it's always got something with budget.
Yeah.
So technically, it's been getting approved. We just have to update.
Yeah.
We've done the shall part.
Yeah, got it.
I did a lot of reworking of our goals. So I'd love for you guys to spend a minute with those before we, look to approve this in, what did we just say, June? I tried to make them clear, mostly Crystal. Yes, Crystal?
Julia, thank you for all of your work on this. I love the simplicity and clarity and readability of the document. I don't think I saw the word advocacy in the rules exactly.
Yeah, more in our work plan, or
Okay.
what's the fourth one before marketing that, so in our work plan, we have collaborative partnerships and outreach to and for the district. So a lot of those are talking about all of the items that we have advocated for or against in the past. And then I guess the one is to foster a cooperative and collaborative spirit within the city of Eau Claire. But you're right, that, doesn't, and cooperative and collaborative are pretty similar. I could, like, yeah, having an opinion is
Okay.
a part of our charge.
I have two more really small things. One
Yeah.
of them is under programming right after that. I wonder about listing those exactly, just if, one of them goes defunct or we add another one, then it feels like we're having to actually change the document which goes into perpetuity. Yeah, so I like the idea of saying like art and music events, educational events, eating,
Yeah.
whatever we call it,
Yeah.
more or less, specific.
And I wrote, such events might include amongst others, but you're right.
And then a list.
5 years from now, it could look really outdated.
I don't want anybody to assume that they should apply because they're not. And then the other one was, if all of us only attended half of the meetings, we would never have a forum, so that doesn't seem strict enough. That only if you miss half of the meetings in a year would we want to say goodbye.
Yeah, I assume that everybody will work to attend all the meetings that they can. And then, occasionally there is a year in which like the schedule doesn't align or maternity leave or, there's just,
Well, if we only have 4 meetings, missing 2,
yeah, 6.
6, yeah.
So,
My opinion is it should be a little stricter, but I also think, it should be subjective, like if someone is unable to do their duties,
Yeah.
they may be removed just because, yeah, what if everybody's on?
so
Only 6 days, right? So you're harder to plan for.
for Hawk, but we met monthly, if somebody would miss 3 meetings in a row, that the chair would reach out to them to say, hey, do you still want to be involved? If you're going to continue missing meetings, we probably should look at filling it. So it wasn't a hard, you missed 3, you're gone. It's if you miss 3, expect a phone call to discuss, if this is working for you. So
That's all I can do for your work.
Thank you.
Before we vote on it, are they gonna fill in
Well, I'm not actually gonna,
all the
I'm just gonna
agenda?
keep working towards it. Yes, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, all the, then it should be printing the opinion.
Right. And I have, just for like full disclosure, I have been kind of taking a stance of I want your opinion, not to rewrite my document. So I'm going to, I think by asking them for their opinion, then they'll have to say like, well, this doesn't meet state statute versus rewriting something that does meet state statute, but they prefer it to be another way because that's, this has not been brought up, but like more convenient if all of them are the same. And that was originally a charge of that all 4 districts should have like kind of the same operating agreement, but the appendixes could be different. And that's really been dropped. I've been told you guys can have what you want. So I really appreciate that kind of change in direction, while working with staff.
This one, C, where it says a list of accessible properties in the district. We voted at one of the bid boards to get that yearly, but, for each bid.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened with that?
I believe we shared them already with each. Yeah,
September of 24, we got a list.
yeah, I'll send it out like at the first of the year to all the bids or include it in the first packet. But I thought we had sent them out to, I got the info and sent them out just recently. I think it was South Barstow you had asked about it, so we did it for all the bids.
Shall we move on from the operating plan? Councilman Aaron,
like officially on the agenda or, you know, a member, but I was thinking about the board makeup, and I'm wondering if within the parameters of the majority being, you know, owners or residents or whatever, I wonder if you could stricten that up. So you say that, you know, a majority have to be, you know, financial contributors, you know, and then that leaves the rest of it open for, you know, nonprofits or businesses that don't own their building and things like that. But then you know, you're within the percentages that the state law likes, but you're also making sure that a majority of your voting members are actually the ones that. I don't know, it was just a thought that I had. And I don't know if that is something that you would want, but that leaves it open for, you know, nonprofits to be on the non-majority, but it also makes sure that a majority of your people are the ones deciding what the.
I know you can't speak on behalf of city council, but as an individual who's witnessed all the conversations, is it your personal opinion that that would be more palatable than saying like, you know, 9 out of 11 need to be from the district?
I think it aligns more closely with what we're trying to move towards with regards to appointments. And so then you end up with, you still have the protection on the rate changes that you want. But it's also allows for the flexibility that appointments is looking for, I think. That makes sense.
Well,
I don't know.
the thing is, we asked whether we could make it stricter, and you're saying loosen it up. Personally, I don't think anybody that's not paying part of the bid fee should be on board. Because they're not contributing anything monetarily, so, you know. And it used to be that way, but then the city attorney changed, or the city council or somebody changed what their opinion was, because he knows that it used to be you could not be on board. It was a strict rule. Then all of a sudden now, it came from Workman that he said that if the city had more control over, if we had diversity on the bid boards, we could see different opinions.
Yeah.
And
Well, what I think is optimal and what the rest of the council would probably be okay with is not necessarily the same. I mean, I voted against, having more strict, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna tell you something that I want just because I want it.
do you think that the idea of the city council, if they want more control over the bid boards and the fees and the money?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's an interest in opening things up and making just more flexibility in a lot of areas. You know, if you had a majority that were, you know, the paying members for your rate and stuff like that, you'd still be, the payers would still be in control of what that gets set at.
John, would you mind if we move on, because I have 3 more action items required, and I know we lose people at 9.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next item is the beautification grant application review. Becky has been administering the beautification grant. I'll ask Erin to review our current options, and I'll make a funding comment before I open it up to discussion. The intended action for this item is a motion to award beautification funds or not. And Erin, if you wouldn't mind just kind of like, I know that this is the second time we've seen both of these applicants. So if you could just kind of give the new, like the follow-up information since between our last meeting.
Sure. So just as a reminder, at the last meeting, you voted to approve 2, but you didn't vote to not approve the 2 that were also presented that are in this packet.
And we kept it open for other applicants.
Yeah, and it's still open for everyone applicants. So as long as you guys have money in the fund, it is open to anyone who wants to apply. So your 2 applicants are Joe Mauer, who is here today, a local artist who worked on your kiosk project, We wanted more follow-up. You guys had some discussion last time, regarding if the grant was suitable to have artists apply for themselves to create work. So that's one of the issues you're kind of looking at, but we also wanted to talk to Joe a little bit more about, I believe it was graffiti, paint that could be used, as well as, sorry, what else did you guys want to cover?
Well, he got official, or the project got official approval from,
Well, Parks and Modernism Council, so Joe's gonna approve to move forward with this project, if there's funding for it.
and then my personal interest of if this happens, will the lighting get, updated? And the answer is the lighting is supposed to get updated whether or not this happens.
Parks and Water easement last night as well. I don't know, did you discuss lighting in tunnels at all?
It's out to bid.
Oh, okay.
All of the tunnels.
Okay. So that is seemingly moving forward. That was one of the pieces of the project. So, Joe's application is in there. It is for $10,000. You guys have seen, or I passed, if you don't have one. This is a sketch mock-up of, potentially what the mural would look like, including the North Barstow logo. So that's there for you. Second application is from, again, from Ellie Phillips, Senior Center. There was some discussion on, because they're a nonprofit and don't pay into the bid, should they be able to receive funds collected by the bids for these projects? As well as, they did receive a donation, a significant donation, and whether those funds would be used to do this project. And they have, sent more pictures. They determined that the donation is not something that they had planned to spend on, this specific proposal for beautification. So those were the discussion points. And so obviously, if you guys would approve both of these, you are over your $20,000 beautification budget for the year. But Julia has some more that she can talk about on that.
The executive committee met and does not have a recommendation, so this recommendation is from me, myself, and I, that we underspent last year. We added $20,000 to our reserves rather than pulling $20,000 from our reserves. And I checked with Dave Solberg because we happened to be talking about something else. And it is within our ability to vote to spend more than our budget item and, specify that money would be coming from reserves. So if we approved both of them, we would be pulling just shy of $10,000 from our reserves. Any other discussion from the board?
Well, I got a question. I went through this packet and there's a thing about lighting.
Oh, that's,
That's a next item. Yeah.
Oh, so that's not part of the,
No,
and same thing with the. Yes.
correct.
one is sponsorship, that's the sponsorship, this is capital improvement project potential, and then the two that we just discussed are for the beautification grant dollar.
And I'm sorry, how much does each project?
It should be on your spreadsheet.
It's like a Excel document. It's roughly $6,000 for Ellie Phillips and $10,000 for the mural. It does a breakdown of what we've.
There's something in the mural that there could be additional money for painting too,
Yeah, do you want to have Joe speak to that?
for the painting.
Oh,
I saw something, 3,000.
thank you.
I got it. Bye, guys.
Yeah, he had originally quoted that, the cost of material could be an additional $3,000 that he's not requesting from you, and will, personally raise your fine.
We,
Sorry, you, bid board, would be considering the $10,000. Joe, personally, will take on the additional $3,000 that a mural of this scope would. Or material. But he's here if you could.
Wasn't present, but we discussed this on Tuesday a little bit. So there was a question about Joe's, the artist, getting the grant and doing the work. Is that what the issue was?
Last time it was, generally it's a property owner that does a improvement to their property in this case, Joe's acting as the project manager and the artist doing an improvement to public property. And that is not forbidden by our grant process. In fact, we, talk about if property, or if improvements are made to public property, you have to get proof of permissions and maintenance plan.
'Cause I think part of the concern was, with you, Joe, but it's just the idea of someone coming multiple times, right? Over like consecutive years. I feel like that was part of the conversation before, where you're creating a job for yourself on an annual basis by coming to the board and asking for $10,000 every year.
Well, and part of my concern too, no offense to you. You know, if we think this is the worthy cause, I mean, I never created a mural, so I don't know how much a mural costs. I mean, should we be putting it out to RFP and say, hey, you want to put a mural here, here's what we want it to look like, and get bids?
I can tell you from the owner of 3 murals that this is well within the cost of a mural, especially of that size.
The other thing is, should we be paying for a mural on public property? I mean, we should be taking care of the properties in the bid board that are.
Well, and that's my preference with my comment too. It's like my preference is if somebody paying in the bid as a
Yeah.
project, that's what my preference.
And I hear your, we don't have it as a requirement of
No, it's not.
the grant, and I'm grateful for that because the 2 that we're considering right now are both non-contributing, and I want them both to happen because I think it is going to benefit our bid. So I'm not trying to benefit the business that, has an improvement. In fact, I almost feel like that's more of a conflict of interest. We are trying to, create beautification to every visitor and shopper and future tenant of, or current tenant of, our downtown or property owner. So I don't see why there's any difference. And the mural in the tunnel in particular, I think starts like drawing energy or like has like an improvement that is leading towards Half Moon Bay Beach, I think is like on top of my list of things that I would like to see within this district.
Does the maintenance plan land with Joe or the city? And then forever? Like 10 years from now, it needs to be repainted or whatever, because has that been part of our jam or like Hines and Hollow has seen that mural?
Well, when it's on private property, it is the ownership and the responsibility of the business owner. And we don't say that like you must guarantee 5 years of maintenance or
Yeah.
50. There's no specifications, just like you own it, it's your responsibility. We kind of wash our hands of it. What was the response for the maintenance plan and the public property?
So I don't know, Billy, if you wanna take this, but we had talked about it. So when there's, because the mural ordinance would say this when there's things on public property, I believe it is an agreement between the city and the artist to maintain. So obviously, if Joe passes away in 10 years, he can't maintain, again, can't maintain it. But then, of course, then the city would have to, but, I don't know if you want to speak a little more to it. I think we talked about it.
Yeah, it is an agreement that the artist would maintain or remove if for some reason the artist isn't able to. I don't know that the city would necessarily maintain it. There'd have to be a decision made then of we're gonna maintain it or remove it if it starts deteriorating.
Right, and I imagine the city wouldn't just go paint over it without first consulting this group and other parties of what to do with it if it was not able to make it.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, I thought you were.
It was that they would.
Just a couple comments. I don't think there's anything right in saying the city wouldn't do that, but last meeting, when we had, these 2 items plus Ray Man and Steve Temp.
Yeah.
Before we looked at, I think we're all in favor of Ray and Steve's hand because they're small business owners and they have high visibility. Those are kind of some things why people always support it. I still am hesitant about these two items. Number one, because the tunnel situation, it's in a tunnel, it's not high visibility. There's people on the bike trail that use it and maybe some people from Mayo that use it going back and forth, but it's not really a high visibility area. And, just look at the cost, for example, Ray or Steve's tent, it was $6,000 for that mural. This one's $10,000, so it's more money, less visibility on public property, not on private property. So those are just some concerns I have about it. And then with the senior center, again, they don't pay any type of taxes into the bid board with it. And they just got a very large amount of money ordered to them. So I just feel that, I think they would have the money to do this on their own. That's all.
So do you feel like the difference between the mural and the tunnel, like one difference between the mural and the tunnel and our, what do we call it, the vestibule? I don't want to say what I call the technology part of it. Do you feel like the difference there is, because that's also on public property and it's like, not on a private ownership thing, is that because of the purpose that it serves with information? I wasn't on the board when we started it, and also the increased visibility.
I can't speak for that either because I was not on board. with
Yeah.
that. Decided.
I'm just thinking about like, that's one of our biggest things we've done and things, speakers and the sound, like, okay, sound in Phoenix Park. That's on city property. And there's a pretty compelling reason why we did it, which has to do with all arts and culture and feeling safety and roaming around downtown.
Following up on your comment, kind of how you are, in my view of where it was when I used to live here and what it's becoming since I've come back here in the last 6 years. And the trails, for example, I don't think were used nearly as much until recently. The improvement we made on the First Avenue Trail, as you can't hardly ride your bike a lot of times, and there can be so many people blocking. And a lot of them do go between the Mayo area, because there's bike paths over there, and so you go up through Carsville, and all that is there. And so as you try to look at what's happening now versus maybe 5 or 10 years down the road, I think something like this actually does encourage people to expand how they use our city. And that's what, at least I understood when Jason said he wanted to be on this board, is one of the things we're trying to do. I look at John with North Barstow, all the things you've done there, and now with your business down there, compared to what it was like when I went to college here. And it's just like, well, you didn't come on this, the other side of the road. And now it's really the place you want to be in town. It's because of people who've done things. But it's not just private, there's been public stuff, Phoenix Park, all these things make a difference. And the bridges, the walking bridge, makes a difference. And so I look at this and say it's an investment. And frankly, a lot of people do use that section of trail that I see, because I ride bike on the trails almost 3 times a week, and the weather's good, sometimes 5 or more. And I think it's a good thing. Right now, that tunnel is kind of dangerous with start. I understand the lights are going to be discussed, but I think this is something we should consider. On the other hand, I agree with what Joe just said about the senior center. I can see assisting them at times, but I'm not sure that that fits right into it, because they're likely to figure out a way to do it anyway. And so I feel, and not just because the artist is here, but I feel more compelled to say this makes sense versus assisting somebody to make their sitting area better. That's how I see it.
And I'm in support of the mural, I'm not as in support of the senior center, so I think we've all had a chance to say our piece. Can we vote? Do we
Yeah.
vote on these
You should make
separate?
the motion.
One thing is that if, I'm not in favor of us being a city, of a mural. But if we do vote, I think the city should, we should not vote unless the city's going to make some kind of agree to maintain it, because she said, well, we could just, if it gets bad, we'll just paint over it. So, I mean, if the city's not willing to commit to maintaining it,
Well,
the artist,
a maintenance plan is a requirement of getting city approval and, so I feel like there is a maintenance plan in place.
is it to paint over it? If it gets graffiti, or is it to maintain?
Joe, do you want to speak
Yeah,
about the
I
maintenance plan
So-
details?
Have you all heard of like when there's a broken window? Vandalism. My experience on waterways and speaking with every artist, there's no instance where, you know, there's a lot of murals around, town, there's no incident of graffiti. So what you have now is a funnel, which is, very patchy, and it has this sort of patchwork thing. And that is what's contributing to the social thing of water graffiti. I don't anticipate graffiti, but if it is, I live in the community and I bike through there this morning and there were hospital employees walking through, pass through. So, in the agreement, I had to, as was mentioned by Billy, I have to, work with the city if there isn't any incidents. The other thing I want to say about it is the paint I'm using is special. It's extremely expensive paint, for one thing, for this space. It's architectural paint. I won't bore you with all the details, but, you have high humidity swings and you have this tunnel underground which stays much cooler and gets frost. So I had to buy this mineral paint, which is, extremely durable architectural paint. I can send you the cut sheets on it if you want, but, so I don't anticipate a lot of maintenance of it.
Stephanie?
I was just gonna say, just to back up what Joe said, that this will be helpful to the city too, because the city has to regularly go and cover up graffiti. And so but that theory that a mural helps to deter graffiti is something that we're supportive of and can be ideally be replicated in other, underpasses and tunnels as well.
Tim?
I make a motion to approve the mural, to not approve the request from the senior center, and to leave funds as necessary to pay for mural upon approval.
I would second.
Any further discussion on the motion? Then all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So that is 4-2 and a simple majority makes the motion pass. Thank you. Our next item is sponsorship request. Our sponsorship request for $1,000 to Jazz Crawl is in your packet. The executive committee's recommendation is to approve this request. Any questions, comments, or a motion to approve $1,000 sponsorship to Jazz Crawl?
I move that we, donate $1,000, sponsor $1,000 to Jazz Crawl.
Second.
Any further discussion on the motion to donate $1,000 to the Jazz Crawl? Then all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Then that motion passes, and we're on to the 2025 capital improvements. This is such an important issue, but, I will preface this by saying, like, talk to Aaron and I about this, but I'll give you the rundown. We have budgeted $60,000 for 2025, and it's in Decky's contract to help us plan or coordinate capital improvement projects. But we need to pick a direction to further investigate and plan before we can bring it back to the board for approval. Then work within the city procurement process for what the board approves. One idea that the South Barstow was looking into last year is structural lighting. An estimate is in your packet to give us an idea of how much it would cost for the fictitious scope that was, laid out. I was interested in structural lighting because it achieves some of the appeal of the lighting of the trees that happen in South Barstow, but it doesn't require us to run electrical service to the trees or the annual cost of restringing trees that have grown too much. Of course, there are other complications like legal agreements with building owners for them to pay for the electrical bill or share in the installation costs and allow us to control the lights like as a group. Other towns have done this and we could figure it out, but there's no sense in further exploration unless the board supports it. Really today, I need a direction from the board on what we would like to see happen with the $60,000 budget so we can put some actual options in front of you. So other projects that we've discussed in the past. 2 bollards in Phoenix Park next to the, I always refer to it as the high five. Yeah.
Literally the name of it.
So, you know, yeah, closer to our CU side, you know, and that would mostly be for events. But there's some, you know, food trucks might not utilize the 30 amp bollard as much as like maybe, you know, a tent for Pride Fest. Other things, we've talked about lighting the trees in downtown or in our district. Our trees are not as large. I'm gonna throw out like $30,000 to just get power into the area below the trees. And then maybe like $1,000 per tree to light it and then annual cost to like restring and replace lights. What does South Barstow annually budget for maintaining the tree lights?
Yeah, it's roughly around $30,000. It's about $20,000 of maintenance a year. And then if they need to replace strands, broken strands and things, then they have 2 maintenance services scheduled every year. So it is a considerable cost. Obviously, they're beautiful.
Yes,
You have
Other-
more block faces than we do in North Barstow. but-
definitely. Yes, we're
Yeah, there's
always on a smaller scale.
7 trees lit, and it took 3 years of expanding the program to get there. But the initial investment was 20,000 of infrastructure, but that was years ago, and we had conduit already.
And we don't have conduit.
So yeah, it would be I think it would be more than 30,000 investment to do that, but
Speakers cost like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, $1,000 a speaker. And then South Barstow also pays $15,000 per year for the management of what is going to play on those speakers. So again, totally an option. And we have 60,000 budgeted. Like if that was the thing we wanted to do, I'm sure that we could come up with a plan within our budget. Hold on, I've just got a couple more. New banners, $60 a piece, $2,000. At our last meeting, I said, let's replace the banners that we have and we should use some of our capital improvements to buy new banners. Not a necessary thing, but it's kind of something I had. And then garland on poles. And South Barstow also does this. It's basically a green rack with lights on the light poles because they already have power. It's $362 per pole. I estimated 10 poles per block, but I don't know if that like both sides. So if we did $3,000 per block, if we did like 5 blocks, it'd be $15K. That was the 4 blocks here. And I imagined one on like 5th Street because I don't want to forget that that's a part of our district. So, you know, maybe $15,000 for a different form of holiday-ish or winter lights, but that wouldn't be up all year. So basically, like, who thinks we have a really good idea that we should bring back a viable plan to like yay, nay, within that list or, you know, outside of that list, but that's kind of the idea.
I just got one, I met with Converge yesterday, and you would not pay $15,000 for management of music because South Barstow already has that. There would be a slight increase in what they would offer that you could split with South Barstow. They threw out, and not for certain, but about $20,000 to cover both bids. And that would depend if you just wanted different messaging from South Barstow on over the speakers, for instance. So it wouldn't be a considerable difference. You would have to invest in the receiver and get that housed somewhere. Dave Solberg had mentioned that under the Dewey Street Bridge would be a place for that. But more information can come if that's an interest for you.
I'm a huge fan of the speakers personally. And I think the idea that was gonna be my question is, could we split that somehow management fee? But I'm a big believer in kind of unifying the 2 neighborhoods. That's always been my thing. Like, why is there such a disconnect when you drive over the bridge? And I love the idea of continuing what Southwest was done because they have done such a tremendous job.
And you think the audio is the most important part?
Not the most important part, but I think one of, I think it's a lot. As you're going down that list, I was saying, yes, yes.
I know.
Yes.
But we should pick one this year to actually accomplish. Last year, we did a little bit of kiosk maintenance and some of our like
And those are,
lean maintenance that put in capital improvements, but we didn't have a substantial achievement last year, and I want one this year.
and I'm not a huge fan of that, yes, project. I'm not.
That is not a part of the
And it's
conversation right
not,
now.
but it's like, I would much rather tackle these things that are community-wide than these one central things, so the lighting figures.
So on infrastructure, I don't know a lot about this stuff. So would it make sense though to try to get electric in all the way that you might need, whether it's for lights above, whether it's for speakers, do they match with each other? Do you need A for B? That's, I guess, one of the
We
questions.
only need lights at the tree grates if we're going to string lights on the trees. Or do uplighting, which I don't like for the birds.
And the string lighting around the buildings, that's totally something that would not need a power source on the street level.
Correct. It would come from private property, and there would be the lease agreements that would have to be made.
We talked about, okay.
And then the garland gets fed from the light pole, well, it already exists, so no infrastructure investment.
As building owners, I mean, how do you feel about this string light project proposal with this,
I'd like to know more about that, because it's, lighting on buildings. Yeah, I'm curious about this.
Did you see that you mentioned your,
I did not.
oh, can we pass him?
Oh, sure, actually, my, I didn't print that part.
I keep saying Hartford.
It's
What is that?
it's in the packet.
So,
Right,
it's all indoor.
Section,
Right
line.
here. It's a,
That one, yeah.
the JCAP building on, Emery Street, 7M or whatever it's called. They have a form of inception lighting. It's a little bit too high and it is different than what they're offering, but it would be that kind of, it has a trap. It's, not really visible unless the lights are on. It can turn any color you want. It can change out, remotely for colors. But it would string across the top of the building. So it could look like you have like, Christmas lights or like wall lights, or it could look like a steady stream.
Sure.
But that would just be us, not South Barstow, right?
South Barstow was exploring this. It got, put on hold when all of this had changed. They are looking to, bring that back. Again, it's a complicated process because you have to have unique, leases with the property owners and where the power comes from. I should let you know though, the power, was quoted in Hartford, that did it. It was like $160, a year that it would cost the property owner for the light. And every 400 feet, you have to have a new connector. So that's a new power source.
So splitting up that bill. And that would be a part of it.
I like the idea of, making us look like one,
Right.
unified.
Because
or-
no one knows that there's bids.
No.
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 They just know that it's beautiful down here and it's not beautiful over here.
I'm just
I mean,
envisioning,
it's,
somebody walking down and we've got our lights, they've got their music.
yeah, it's like, oh, downtown is there.
Yeah.
That's what I think a lot of people feel. It's there and it's being part.
Okay, so based on this conversation, I will point out that if we did garland on poles, at least in the winter, we would have some sort of lighting. And that'd be like $15,000. I don't know how much the speakers are going to cost, but I don't think it's gonna be the full 60.
She would have to come out and do a full service for you. So we're gonna get a quote if you're interested, but.
I think we should pursue lights and garden because it speaks to like doing what they're doing and connecting to what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if they go and do this lighting in the next year or two, then we can have that.
Yeah.
It would probably be smart to have a share.
It's too small and it's too expensive to get the same kind of impact that's what's over there. So that's where I would.
And do we want to make our emphasis in the winter months with the first project? I mean, to your point before, it's like, is our speakers the main priority? Or is it doing something that is in the winter time?
Wow.
It's typically slower down.
We have $60,000, and if we did speakers and garland and poles, my intention would be to afford both of those and maybe even limit the amount of speakers or the scope of the speaker project so that we can afford
Because
both.
I'm sorry, but you said something, three stages was the speakers that you're talking about?
Three what?
You said it took 3 years to do the complete build out.
Mostly just because they didn't want to,
But no, I'm sorry, what project was that on?
to light the trees.
Okay,
The speakers were done in 1 year. They've been up for 12 years, maybe. They should have about a 10-year shelf life. We haven't had a speaker go out. So it's a great long running program if you can afford the maintenance, but again, great service for conversion. And then, I don't also think that it will be 15,000 for your garland, but I will find out. I feel like that's a little high compared to what.
I think I did 10 poles per block, both sides.
Yeah.
And I wanted 4 blocks here and 1 block on Fifth Street because I didn't want to forget that area total.
I'm just trying to compare it to the invoices submitted for Health Parks, and I don't think they have that significant cost, but.
Oh, but it's also the first year you have to buy the garland and the lights, and then the next years you just have to put them up and down.
Thomas Lee has you lease the lights, so he actually owns them.
It's not what he.
Oh, did he say? You can do one or the other, so not that it really matters, but the trees, right now, Oasis services the trees in South Barstow. South Barstow owns the string lights on the trees and has to buy new ones at night. For the garland, I believed it was a lease agreement with Thomas Lee, but I will double check and make sure we have that information. And it does make a huge impact. We have had a lot of feedback on lights just creating safety in the morning, especially in winter when it's dark early and earlier in the evening. But it's a simple project, and again, one you wouldn't have to continue if you didn't like the results of it, not as significant.
So I'm feeling.
Assuming we have sufficient funds to look into both the speakers and the lighting, but not the reception lighting at this point. I think that makes some sense.
so you brought up about 5 different items, so it's speakers, the lighting, and then you were talking about banners. Would that be something that would?
Banners is like 2,000.
So that's still all there, and then you had one or two.
More electricity by RC.
Yeah, I feel like we can't afford to light the trees long term. And our trees aren't that big. And then there's also power in the park. Doesn't seem to have the energy, like the 2 bollards that it used to. And then the inception lighting, we could put that one as do you have interest pending South Barstow having interest, and that might be a 2026 project.
Sorry.
And again, you guys are just looking to explore these ideas so that I go out and find information for you.
Right. And then obviously with lighting poles and trees and all that kind of thing, we would go through similar to what we did with, say, like the garbage cans and juice placement of the poles and.
Yeah.
And lighting curtain.
You're about to lose one.
I actually don't need quorum because unless you guys, I don't even think we could, I suppose if we had wanted to move forward with the invoice in your packet, then you could say Julia is authorized to put out an RFP for this project.
The lighting.
Yeah, for the building lighting. So we're good.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Sorry for the long meeting. I really tried to make this streamlined so that we didn't have the longest meeting ever, but it was just too many things on the agenda. Our next thing is the DECI contract. At our February board meeting, this board authorized me to enter into a contract with DECI for 2025 services outlined in our RFP. We're still going back and forth on the contract, which is now titled an MOU, but we're just working on clarifying items and that we both agree upon. So I expect the contract to be finalized yet this week and to get a bill from DECI for January and February under the terms of this contract, the one contract that came from the RFP, not the temporary contract that the executive committee agreed to move forward with in late January. It made more sense to focus on one because I didn't think the other one was going to happen any faster. So just so everybody knows that is a little divergence from what maybe the understanding was at our last meeting. And just make sure you're in agreement that DECI should not need, oh yeah, pay attention to this one. So in this contract, DECI will not need board approval for vendor selection such as garbage service, snow removal, planter maintenance, banner maintenance, spending of advertising dollars, including kiosk maintenance. They will be authorized through our contract to spend within the budget to accomplish these things and will come to the board for approval to go over any line item amounts. So as long as they're in the budget, they're gonna spend that money. They're not coming back to us for approval on a garbage service contract. Okay. And then on the other hand, Decky will only pay event sponsorships and grant awards that are approved by the board. Okay, I see nodding heads and not running off the rails, so I'll just move on to kiosk. Unless there's other Decky contracts. And short story is, I think we're gonna explore this Raspberry Pi option.
Yeah, I have confirmed you started your contract in 2022, so you completed your 3 years, February of 2024. So the invoice that you received to continue the service. Yeah.
Like more rolling now, so we're gonna say $4,200 in, software management and like licensing, and better spend that in content creation for basically slideshow.
And I had a conversation with Grant Barnes, who we contract with. It is not a problem to do that, and we can update, we want to work with you on what you want on there, but we can update it monthly would be good with that. I do also want to say there might still be a licensing, wayfinding licensing fee for having a digital kiosk. I'm not sure I have to look into that. Roughly $1,000
instead of 4,200. No, it's not wayfinding. Our next item is plan for tree grade banner maintenance, and I'll just say that Decky has been planning but not able to move forward with hiring work because we don't have a contract where they can hire work out on our behalf yet. So we can
Quick
go on to.
question, can somebody remind me, our tree grades, what is in the base of the tree grades right now?
Hopefully not weeds, and that's what we aim for.
Yeah, we were just in Savannah. I
Yeah,
was taking a lot of pictures, and
Oh.
boy, they have some beautiful tree grades down. in
like
Savannah.
moss or what?
It's like I have a picture, maybe I'll show you after, it's not a grass, it's like a hardy plant of some sort, it's dense, that grows up
like
through the
ground
tree
cover or
roots.
something.
And it's about that tall,
Yeah,
it's beautiful, and it's just green. And
Yeah.
It's just like the hardy.
well, they are in Georgia, but,
We're in Wisconsin.
do you remember Lisa Asmussen? Like trying meeting after meeting to have at least one planted with white clover, because she loves the pollinators.
Yeah,
And she's like, why can't we do this? And there was,
there's gotta be like a hardy winter plant that was the same salt and snow that was still.
I don't know.
So I think
I got a biology degree, none of them come to mind. But can we chat offline on this one?
Sure, yeah.
And like now Erin is tasked with, like finding solutions for this. So you can talk to Erin all day long without, breaking open meeting laws. You know what I mean? Like we can discuss these things if you're discussing them with our service provider, because it is now her responsibility to hire that.
Beautiful.
Now, please don't abuse the time of this, because like, according to our contract, she is directed by me, but you know what I mean?
I'm gonna bring my laptop with me too.
And in fact, like, we have that in the RFP, but we didn't actually put it in the contract that you don't work for 11 different people.
Yeah. But I'd love to chat with you about it, and there will be some issues in the fact of the way the tree grades have been put in at this point with pea gravel and things. There would be removal things.
Yeah.
Mostly when you see growth in there right now, you're seeing seeds that spread.
Yeah.
And that's what Jeff's maintaining now, but there is a place in South Barstow, they're looking to start with some ground cover planting area, so we can definitely talk.
Yeah.
Erin, you got some Decky updates coming?
Well, thank you for sticking around. I do, mostly the fun stuff I'll stick to. So, first on Sunday, tell all of your friends, and I wanted to tell everyone, we have our very first downtown meat raffle going on at Clancy.
I saw the video of that.
Yeah, Clancy's Irish Parrot Bar from 3:30 to 5:30 on Sunday. We have to look for different funding sources, so we got a raffle license, and this is something that we want to do. As soon as we announced, we had 5 other businesses jump on that wanted to do a meat raffle as well. We're looking to make them thematic, and so we're planning one on May 4th. We are gonna get some chorizo and meat from some of the new Mexican markets that we have. But anyway, we're working with 3 local farms right now. Just want to let you know, Blazer Farms, Around the Table Farms, which is a micro dairy, and then Deutsche Family Farms. It's gonna be super fun. Please come out, fundraise for Ducky. Other than that, just for you guys, what is coming up? In April, you have your jazz crawl on Friday, the 12th, 11th or 12th, you know, Tim?
Friday is the 11th. this
The
time.
11th, yeah. So they close off a portion of South Barstow, but of course they're getting people into venues. We're gonna have 5,000 people downtown. So really, really remarkable, what they do. And then we have, the next weekend on the 19th is the, Amazing Oak Cliff cleanup. So you'll see volunteers downtown in your district as well as, the rest of the city. Cleaning up, which is really amazing. And then last of April, we have the marathon through. So first Barstow Street will be closed, along with portions of Graham. And that's also an amazing event. So Sunday, there's gonna be a Barstow Street Block Party. It's 3 miles before the end of the race. And so it's kind of the last push for these people. So we're trying to throw a nice party for them. There, you'll hear more about that. I could talk forever, but I'm just gonna stop because you guys are really like.
I haven't added, I would just say, just so everybody's knowledgeable, extra officers out during Jazz Fest, just roaming around on foot patrol, no particular reason other than just to add people downtown, so safety for everybody.
I just want to add, because this is problematic year after year, so they'll be closing the streets from 5 to whenever, but I believe the parking restriction signs that go up is like from 4 p.m. They have that parked off. Quentin, the executive director, often struggles with getting police to help get those vehicles towed or removed. Obviously, it's the worst thing in the world to have that. In the past, I've contacted Andy Cole, and then, but even at Fall Fest, we had a problem where I contacted Andy, he wasn't working, and the guy didn't come in until 9, and we were stuck on Carson Street. So just putting out there, if you need me to do anything more with your staff, I am available to communicate.
Okay, we should read about that after this, so that we can mitigate that problem.
And is it Bridget?
Yeah.
And what's your last name?
Coy.
Thanks for coming to our meeting. I'm sorry I didn't pause.
Nope,
to
nope,
introduce.
Totally okay. I apologize for being late. I have childcare issues in the morning, so I'm gonna get to work at a certain time, so. Yes, but, and then we obviously have a bunch of officers out for the marathon as well, and we're working with the marathon. On that.
Any city staff updates?
Not a whole lot, just, the neighborhood association, the apartments that live around the Galloway ramp have had concerns about vehicles racing or having loud vehicles in there.
About this at council meeting.
So, yeah, so, within the next week, speed bumps will be put into that ramp, just so you guys are aware. And I think we're gonna do a little covert operation to maybe get some tickets out. I don't know, wear my security shirt or.
I was just gonna give you a
Or-
fast Billy, but. You know.
Yes! But, we're either some of my staff or me are gonna coordinate with the PD and, people that are racing up and down and going up there and parking and hanging out and not paying for parking. We'll be issuing parking tickets. A lot of times they're not necessarily violating anything except maybe causing a little bit of disturbance, like we all did when we were teens, but they're putting a lot of stress on the apartment buildings
They don't
nearby.
have main drags, they're now just doing the parking thing.
Yep.
So cool.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Any other announcements?
I don't think anything else citywide that impacts you guys. Anna made the big announcement, so.
We are adjourned, just shy of 2 hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Lots of work.
So much work. Thank you.
So when do you guys post, I guess my question is, when do you guys post it that the vehicles have to be moved?
So I typically have to post them because we have 8 hours that gets.
Yep.
So, Jazz House actually takes care of it on their own. Last year they had stuck tape and now we have them on the right.
Are you just buzzing today?
I have
Because the
recommended
day resource location,
Yeah.
get announced?
But
Yeah, I think, I'm the only one who never stilt it in some way to somebody. So if you need somebody reliable to keep a secret, I'm about the only one that,
I recommended that to Clinton. I'm not quite sure.
everybody tried. They- I'd be like, oh, that was good, that was good. Still not gonna tell you, but good attempt.
All right, well, sorry it's been a long meeting. It's gonna get better.
We know that we are looking
Better.
Yep.
I even talked to Erin yesterday.
So just being able to have,
We
we
don't
had
have
police
to approve,
down
you know,
there.
like a
Well, I'd say
garbage
that, yeah,
contract,
just even knowing
like,
that's
this
an
is,
issue, we can designate a CSO.
this should help
At
us
that time,
in the
like that,
future.
like, as long as you know, like, you know how to do it.
Just like,
So what time?
It was 5 to